Hey everybody, and welcome on in to another video. I am Ty. Today we are talking about a very cool box set that I have been waiting for a number of years, as some fans have been waiting for decades. And yeah, man, it's lived up to the hype, which is very good. When you're waiting for something that long, you don't want it to disappoint. That box set, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, Black Sabbath Anno Domini 1989 to 1995. So what is contained in this set, you might ask? This is all the IRS records era Sabbath stuff. So basically everything from Headless Cross to Forbidden, minus Cross Purposes Live, which we will talk about soon. But yeah, this is all stuff that's been well out of print for a long time. The LPs are super expensive. The CDs are even expensive. I do own all these on CD, and I used to own Headless Cross on LP, but it got purged in the great purging of my vinyl many moons ago. I used to own an original U.S. pressing. Was super cool. I think I paid like $30-40 for it, like 6 years ago. I ain't paying $30-40 now. Maybe the prices have dropped though since this has come out. So yeah, if you're not familiar with this era of the band, Tony Martin's fronting the band at this point, and left and came back a couple times in between when he started. And this contains all of the Tony Martin studio records minus one, and that is the Eternal Idol. I guess there was some rights issues there. I'm kind of assuming UK rights issues because this is all put out by Warner. Basically, IRS went bankrupt. The rights went crazy and were in limbo for a number of years. Tony Iommi ended up getting the rights back, and that's how we have this box set. I guess, he made a deal with Warner to put out this set, and for whatever reason, even though the Eternal Idol was a Warner Records album back in the day when it originally came out, there must be something else, maybe UK rights issues like with Vertigo or something, that prevented it from being in this box set. The Eternal Idol you can readily get still. There's been a deluxe CD pressing of it. My vinyl copy, I think I paid like $20 for. It's definitely not as rare as these, for sure. I mean, some of these never had U.S. vinyl pressings as well. So, I think Cross Purposes and Forbidden did not, 94, 95. I'm pretty sure Tear did, and I know Headless Cross did. But, yeah, as far as getting LP copies of these, very hard. Even CD copies. Like, my CD copies I paid up for. So, my little history of how I got into this era of Sabbath really heavily before we get into the box set. So I became a big Sabbath fan when the Dio Years compilation was released. I was working at Target at the time. This is when I was in high school. I was collecting a lot of CDs, had disposable income, still living at home, had no bills, would just, spend my meager paychecks on CDs, and would always go to the electronics department on break and lunch and check out new releases. And when the Dio Years set came out, that's when I really got into Sabbath, and especially that era of Sabbath. I had always been a ancillary Sabbath fan. I honestly probably liked solo Ozzy more than Sabbath proper. And one of my very first musical memories, which I've talked about on the channel, is that reunion live record. My uncle had a cassette of that, and I remember seeing that in the garage all the time as a little kid, and him playing it. So that was kind of my first exposure to Black Sabbath songs. That and the Sabbath tunes that are on the Ozman Cometh compilation, the Ozzy Greatest Hits. So that's kind of my exposure to Sabbath. Then the Dio Years came out, and I was like, holy shit, there's this whole other era of Sabbath that I didn't even know about. And then they got back together with Ronnie, and Vinny and did the Heaven and Hell project. Saw them twice. Saw them once with they opened for Judas Priest, and Testament was on that bill as well. Really good show. And then I saw them once where they headlined, Coheed and Cambria opened, and that was one of Ronnie's last shows actually here in Phoenix. It was only it wasn't that much longer until he passed away, and then it was like towards the end of that tour, which is his last ever tour. So super stoked to see that. Dio era Sabbath always been my favorite. Heaven and Hell is one of my all-time favorite records. Mob Rules is definitely in my probably top 50. And after that, I really got into the history of the band. And there's this like huge blank period in Sabbath history. If you just follow along with the like official narrative that like the Sharon camp puts out there. Like if you go on the Black Sabbath website, like this history is completely forgotten about. A lot of the Ronnie stuff is too. And I remember going on Wikipedia and seeing other albums and like, what the hell are these? And downloading them and absolutely just falling in love with these records. They're very kind of modern, to the time, Sabbath sounding records, which I absolutely love. I love 80s metal and hard rock. That's what this is. It's kind of contemporary to the time Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi is one of my favorite songwriters and riff writers ever. And that shines through. And then when you put Cozy Powell on a couple of these records too, that just elevates it. And then Tony Martin is absolutely stellar vocalist. Not the greatest frontman in the world, but honestly, like if you watch old live shows of him with Sabbath, like he can do everything. He can do Ozzy songs well. He does the Ronnie songs great, and obviously his own songs. So honestly, I love watching those shows more because Ronnie would only play select few Ozzy songs. Ozzy obviously would play nothing that was, post his era of the band. And the Tony Martin live shows are kind of like a real, true time capsule of Black Sabbath where they were playing anything and everything, which is really cool. Like, even when Geezer Butler came back into the band for Cross purposes, they played a lot of songs that Geezer wasn't on. They played Headless Cross songs. They played Tear songs. So, super cool. So, yeah, I discovered these albums. Of course, had to go on Sail the High Seas and download these because I wasn't going to find the CD copies. They never showed up in the record store. And, that's when I got into the band. Put that on my iPod, or this era of the band, and put them on my iPod and would just really dive into the records. Really fell in love with Headless Cross first and then kind of branched out from there. So this was always a giant hole in my Sabbath collection. So to finally own this is awesome. Now, if you're familiar with the Black Sabbath sets, it's a similar quality as far as the box goes. There's the back showing you the track listings and the 4 albums that you get. Hard, passes the knock test, very sturdy box. And I've spent a lot of time with this. Partially the reason why this review and kind of unboxing is so late, just because I really wanted to spend a lot of time with these albums. And I have. And I'm happy to say that they're excellent. And let me get these out of here. So, of course, nothing on the inner box, just a black inner, so nothing crazy going on there. It's kind of bare bones. I will preface this with this. The CD box set contains all the Japanese bonus tracks, which is nice. You get a few extra tracks. Those are on streaming. So if you want to listen to these records, they're available. They're on Spotify. They're on Apple Music. They're on all the major streaming services. So that is awesome for people. I am super stoked that people are finally discovering these records. Obviously, I was way late to the game because I got these records, maybe 15 years ago and 10 years ago. And some of these people have been into these records since they came out, so decades. And they've never really gotten any love. So it's really cool to see younger fans kind of discovering these albums for the first time and just having access to them, because if you wanted to listen to these records before and you didn't own them physically, you had to go on YouTube, and sometimes those rips would come up and then they would get pulled down, and some were better than others. So it's awesome that you can get it in high quality whenever you want. And if you want to own them, they're easily accessible. Japanese bonus tracks are on the CD. CD set is around $51 on Amazon right now. This vinyl box set is currently on sale for $94.07, so $95. You get 4 LPs, which in my mind is a great deal for 4 LPs, especially in today's age when single LPs sometimes sell for $35, $40 in the record store. So I think that's a good deal, especially if you're getting it for $94. You're paying less than $25 a record, which is great. So let's start with, of course, Headless Cross, probably the most popular album in this set. This is the second Tony Martin record. Very nice glossy sleeves. There's your back and your track listing. I love this lineup of the band. Tony Iommi, Cozy Powell, Tony Martin, Jeff Nichols on keys, and Lawrence Cottle on bass. Very, very 80s sounding record. I always consider this kind of like Black Sabbath crossed with like 80s Whitesnake. It's kind of my vibes with it. Not much on the inners. Just blank inners, but they are poly lined, which is always nice and appreciated. And just black LP, and there's your label. And yeah, I am happy to say that every one of these pressings in here is completely flat, no warping. They all sound great, super quiet, not loud pressings. And Headless Cross, Tear, and Cross Purposes have been remastered by Tony Iommi. And Forbidden, which we'll talk about, has a completely brand new mix, which is very, very cool. So there's the stick-on back. Always got to save that, of course. And let's see, there's my receipt from Zia. There's your hype sticker. Right there. This did come with a very cool Headless Cross poster that I have framed up in the other room. And then you get a replica tour book from the Headless Cross tour. A lot of cool pictures in there. And all that good stuff. I love these replica tour books because, you know, if you didn't have access to them or you don't want to pay the money that they command today, it's very cool to have. Little time capsules. There's Cozy on a Honda. So, yeah. Get the replica tour book. And then you get this book, which is super cool. Very thick. Lots of pages. Good write-ups in here. It's mostly old of-the-time interviews, which is very cool. So you can kind of hear the guy's thoughts in real time. And then you actually... This is where you get all your liner notes and lyrics as well for every album. So that is super, super nice, super cool. Yeah, and then you get different promotional material, old 7-inch album covers, and then posters, stuff like that, all in there. So yeah, book is super cool. It's a fun read to kind of get a good time capsule of where the guys' headspaces were at. When they were recording and when they were touring on these albums. Here's Tear, 1990. Super good record. Neil Murray's on bass. That's the only change. So you get a consistent lineup there. I said Cozy was on 2 of these records, or he's actually on 3. Cross Purposes is the only record he's not on. But yeah, Tear. Absolutely love this record. Anno Mundi, The Lawmaker, Jerusalem is a 6 song. The Sabbath Stones is classic Sabbath through a modern lens. Valhalla, super, super cool record. Devil and Daughter, the title track, Headless Cross, probably my favorite records on that. Nightwing, man. Tony Martin nails Nightwing. Absolutely stellar song. Here's 1994 Cross Purposes. Funny part about this is this same image was used for a Scorpions album or single, if I recall. All of these are just on black vinyl. But like I said, you do get the poly inners, which is cool. I've really fallen in love with this album, too. This album, Geezer Butler came back, which is nice because Tony Martin was handling all the lyrics. So this one they kind of tag teamed a lot of stuff, which is cool. Geezer's bass playing is welcome. Obviously, that's the Sabbath sound. So to have him and Tony back together with Tony Martin and Bobby Rondinelli on drums does a great job. If you watch the Cross Purposes live show that they released on VHS back in the day, there's a super clean rip of it on YouTube right now. Bobby Rondinelli slays on the drums. Really good lineup for this record, and I hope that that show gets a vinyl release or a CD release or something. Put it back out and touch it up. That would be really cool. I think that's in the like the rumor mill of what Tony's potentially doing next. So that would be really cool. I would love the Tony Martin era to get some more love. Unless there's other live shows out there, that's probably the rest of what they can do, unless they do like a special vinyl edition of the Eternal Idol. But yeah, Cross Purpose is in here. I love this album. Cross of Thorns is probably my favorite song on here. Psychophobia is really cool, kind of classic Sabbath bass. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle is a really cool song. Evil Eye is a cool song. Eyewitness, really good underrated Sabbath record for sure. And then finally, probably last and least, is Black Sabbath Forbidden. Now, Forbidden is notorious for being an awful sounding record. And when they were in the studio, IRS wanted Tony to work with Ice-T and Ernie C of Body Count. And they wanted Ernie C to produce this record. And the band just kind of went along with it. Tony Iommi just went along with it and did what the record label wanted. And it's notorious just for being an awful sounding record. And, you know, it's funny, there's quotes in here from Tony Iommi where Ernie was trying to tell Cozy how to drum and trying to change his sound. And, you know, it's hard to do. Like Tony says, like, in interviews, like, you know, Cozy's cozy. Like, the reason people like him is because of the way that he plays. So when a producer comes in and says, no, I want you to do this, most of the time that's probably going to backfire. Like, a guy that deep into his career is not saying he can't learn new tricks, but like that deep in his career has a signature sound that people love and recognize him for. So when you tweak that, it's kind of diminishing returns. But Tony Iommi did the remix for this and easily sounds, for me, 1,000 times better, like, than my CD copy. 1,000 times better than that. They did really good work on this. Like, it's not one of those remixes that was useless, like in just a promotional tactic. No, they did a really, really good job on this. So I was super happy. Honestly, with this record, Get a Grip's a cool song. Shaking Off the Chains is pretty heavy. Rusty Angels is probably my favorite. It's kind of like just a weird Dokken like type song, but that's kind of the best way I could describe it. But it's cool too. There is some kind of hidden deep cuts on here that I know people really appreciate, and I've kind of fallen in love with this record with this remix for the very first time. And awful album cover aside, like, none of this should be on here. Like, this with the Grim Reaper dude is a really cool album cover by itself. All these caricatures of different Sabbath members at the time, just, you know, I don't know. Cozy did, like I said, Cozy did come back to work on this record with the guys. And yeah, this was the last Sabbath record for a very long time, until 13, unless you count Heaven and Hell's Devil You Know, but that wasn't under the Sabbath name. So this was technically the last Sabbath record for a very, very long time. And it really didn't get any love until now, which is super cool. And I like it. I like it. The remix is definitely worth it. I would say, like, if you're on the fence with this box set, just stream the stuff first. Like, if you've never heard these albums, check them out on streaming first before you plunk down the money. But for me, you know, $51.99 for the CD set or $94.07 for the vinyl set, like, you can't go wrong with that. I would imagine this is a very pretty limited print run too. I wouldn't imagine that they did a ton of copies of this. just because it's not your mom's Sabbath. Let's just put it that way. Like the average person walking into the record store isn't going to know what these albums are. Now, they might buy it thinking, oh, these are old Ozzy records I never heard or something, like if they haven't done their research. So maybe there is some of those types of sales, but I highly doubt it. I imagine most of the people are just going to look at this and look at the hype sticker and go, I didn't know this existed. This probably sucks because I didn't know what it is. It's not Volume 4. It's not the self-titled. It's not Paranoid. It's not Master Reality, so I don't want it. Or even the Dio fans, too. The Dio era fans, they might be saying the same thing. But just stream them. And then if you want to pick it up, like I said, it's less than $25 an LP. It's what, around $12 a CD. You can't go wrong with that in today's age, man, with stuff being so expensive. I absolutely love the box set. I am super stoked that the stuff is finally out there, and these albums are getting praised and the love that they rightfully deserve. Like, they're not the best Sabbath records. Like Headless Cross and Tear, I would put up against a lot of Sabbath stuff. I absolutely adore those records. But, yeah, it's a hard sell to sell the old hats on them again. But I imagine there's a lot of younger fans that will fall in love with them just like I did. So what are your guys' thoughts on this box set? I am absolutely stoked, obviously, that it is finally here, and I can complete the Sabbath vinyl collection. It is completely done. All the studio albums owned on vinyl, finally. It's finally done, which is super cool. I never thought that would happen. I mean, this box set was being talked about for years and years and years. Like every year, Tony would give an update about it, or Tony Martin would make a Facebook post about it, and the rumors would just swirl and swirl. So it never seemed like it was going to come out, and then to finally be here when it did, super awesome. And the quality of the box set is top tier. They did a great job. I guess my only nitpick on this would be if they could have done like maybe another bonus 12-inch or maybe a 10-inch or something that did contain those Japanese bonus tracks, but then that would have just drove the price up a little bit more. And I'm sure they wanted to be right in that $100 price point to kind of get maybe those. It's still a lot of money, but it's not too much. It's not $200. It's not $250. You can maybe get a lot of those impulse buyers at $100. Like, I just want to check out these albums physically. But worst case scenario, they are finally on streaming, so rejoice. Anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. I would certainly appreciate it. We talk about vinyl. We talk about music here, mostly metal, so you can stick around with us. I've been Ty. You've been you. I'll see you next time. Peace.